Hello, and welcome to The Sleepy Owl, a cozy nook where you can gently unwind and drift into a peaceful night's rest. Tonight, we're sharing another soothing story, one that can help settle your mind and foster a feeling of quiet calm. But first, let's take a moment to prepare our bodies and minds for a tranquil, rejuvenating sleep. Settle in comfortably, and with each slow inhale and gentle exhale, allow the day's worries to gradually fade away. It can be challenging to pull away from the day's busyness, particularly as bedtime approaches. Yet remember, the less we stress over falling asleep quickly, the easier it becomes for our minds to release any tension. Let the gentle rhythm of your breath carry off lingering concerns, and let tonight's story be your guide toward deep relaxation. Now make yourself comfortable and let the warmth of the sleepy owl envelop you. Enjoy the story, and may you find a restful, peaceful slumber here in our little nighttime sanctuary. Wood smoke, a phantom thread, wove through the air, an alchemical blend with the deep notes of chocolate and roasted coffee. Outside, a silent ballet of snowflakes commenced, perfecting the enchantment. Elara cradled the ceramic warmth of her hot chocolate, letting the heat seep through her palms, a gentle tide flowing inward. Lifting the mug, she inhaled deeply, sweet cocoa laced with an unexpected whisper of mint. She was nestled within a timbered sanctuary in Finland's far north, the land known as Sapmi, or Lapland, a realm surrendered to snow for more than half the turning year. Here, above the Arctic Circle, winter wasn't merely a season, it was the pulse of life, shaping culture beneath long nights and crystalline skies. The cafe itself, reminiscent of a log cabin, yet distinctly triangular, like a traditional kota, centered around a substantial stone fire pit radiating welcome. Polished picnic-style tables gleamed softly under the low ceiling, warm enough for the turtleneck she wore. Her heavy winter coat nonetheless rested on a wooden rack nearby. From behind the counter came the rhythmic clinking of mugs, where a woman, Helmi, attended to her washing. Murmurs drifted from surrounding tables, a tapestry of languages, English, Finnish, Russian, Spanish, weaving through the shared space. Dim, amber lights, suspended from metal fixtures, cast long shadows, bathing the rustic interior in a moody glow. Beyond the window panes, twilight was already deepening. Though daylight dwindled swiftly in this realm, the sky still held bruised violet and rose hues, a backdrop for the slow-motion descent of fresh snow, adding its weight to the profound white silence blanketing the earth. Distant village lights began to prick the gloom, mirroring the warm yellow glow of the cafe, each building a soft beacon against the snow. Her own rented cabin was visible, a miniature promise of shelter. Snow-laden pines stood sentinel around the settlement. The scene possessed a fragile magic, demanding preservation. Unzipping her backpack, Elara rummaged past woolen gloves, a leather-bound journal, and deeper still, the reassuring bulk of her ice skates safely secured. Her fingers brushed a cold lace, a flicker of anticipation for the hours ahead igniting within her. At last, her phone surfaced, cool against her skin. She navigated to the camera app, shifting on the bench toward the window's view. She raised the phone, tapping the screen to coax the image into sharp focus. A few distinct clicks punctuated the cafe's quiet hum before she lowered the device. The captured image held her gaze until the screen surrendered to darkness. With a decisive movement, she turned the phone off, consigning it back to the depths of her pack. The zip's rasp joined the companionable crackle of the nearby fire. Her attention returned to the table, to the waiting mug. Lifting the ceramic vessel again, she breathed in the sweet steam before taking a slow, deliberate sip. For a while, she simply held the comforting warmth, alternating between sips and contemplation of the dual vistas, the cozy refuge within, and the hushed, snow-draped world without. Eventually, the mug stood empty. Elara slid it back onto the smooth wood, gathered her backpack, and eased herself off the bench. A smile and a wave acknowledged Helmi behind the counter as she retrieved her coat from the rack, its weight familiar. She approached the curved wooden door leading to a small sheltered porch. Grasping the handle, the chill of the Arctic air made its presence known, a sharp intake of breath against the metal. Opening the door released a momentary wave of cold that washed over her, instantly countered by the robust layers she wore, armor against the deepest freeze. Before venturing further, she settled onto a bench tucked beneath the eaves, shielded from the falling snow. Another zip, and her thick woolen gloves emerged. Methodically, she drew them on, smoothing each finger until the fit was perfectly snug. Now, she thought, standing, now I am ready. A deep exhalation plumed visibly in the frigid air, hanging for a moment before dissolving into the twilight. Her rented kick sled, the local chariot of choice on these snow-compacted, unsalted lanes, awaited her. Fashioned primarily from wood, it featured a small chair mounted above twin metal runners, like elongated skis, crowned with sturdy handlebars. She left it propped just to the right of the cafe entrance. The snow crunched softly, a crisp percussion beneath her boots with every step. The sled was as she'd left it, albeit now adorned with a delicate frosting of fresh snow on the seat and handles. Just then, a local man, Axel, ambled past, his face weathered and kind. He gestured toward a small shed nearby, its triangular roof echoing the cafe's design. "Snow scraper inside there?" he offered in accented English. Elara glanced at the outbuilding, its long door looking firmly shut. With a grateful smile, she thanked him for his kindness. A firm tug, accompanied by the sharp crackle of ice yielding in the door's seams, granted her access. Inside, amidst shadowed tools, she located the scraper behind a large rake. A few swift strokes cleared the snow from the kick sled's chair and handlebars. She returned the tool to its place, pushing the shed door firmly closed until it latched. Almost ready, she mused, to glide towards the forest. Carefully, she secured her backpack onto the sled's chair, ensuring its stability. Then, placing one booted foot, then the other, onto the runners, she found her balance. Her gloved hands grasped the handlebars. she briefly imagined the biting cold of the metal without the wool's protection. Drawing her dominant foot back, she launched herself forward with a powerful push against the snowy ground. Crystalline flakes sprayed upward like miniature fireworks. Effortlessly, she was moving, navigating the straight, snow-packed artery of the Arctic village. She fell into a rhythm, gliding silently, then kicking intermittently to maintain momentum. Cabins drifted past, warm squares of light in the deepening blue. Fellow villagers, bundled against the cold, offered nods as she passed. Above, the sunset bled soft pinks into the delicate azure, the colors intensifying as the moments slipped by. Sunsets were brief spectacles here, the inhabitants long accustomed to the reign of darkness, fostering a culture where coziness, candlelight, and fire-warmed cafes became essential comforts. Soon, she passed Axel again. He likely heard the rhythmic shoosh of her sled runners approaching. They exchanged waves and greetings without her breaking stride. Minute snowflakes, impossibly light, tapped against her nose and cheeks. A profound sense of belonging settled over her. In this moment, suspended between twilight and night, gliding through this hushed landscape, there was nowhere else she would rather be. Another kick propelled her onward. A flurry of motion approached. Children on their own kick sled zoomed past, a gust of cold air swirling in their wake. Two young boys stood upright on the runners, swaddled in winter gear, scarves trailing like banners. Another child, a small girl in a white knitted beanie, sat nestled in the chair of one sled, mitten-clad hands resting demurely in her lap, strands of hair escaping to dance in the wind. The joyful procession vanished down the street. After several more minutes of rhythmic gliding, Elara executed a leisurely right turn. As she rounded the corner, the vista opened onto sheer winter enchantment. A lake lay before her, a vast expanse locked beneath thick, opaque ice. Pine trees, their branches heavy with a magical dusting of fresh snow, formed a dense fringe around much of its perimeter. The clean, sharp scent of pine drifted on the air, instantly recognizable, deeply evocative, one of her most cherished winter aromas, alongside peppermint and warm spices. The sun had now fully dipped below the horizon, and the first stars began to pierce the darkening velvet sky. A few scattered lampposts flickered to life, their faint clicking sounds barely audible as they acknowledged the encroaching night. It was an image plucked from a fairy tale, beckoning her closer. Reaching the lake's edge, she slowed the sled to a gentle halt, letting out a soft sigh after the smooth journey. She paused, absorbing the profound stillness, the stark beauty of snow-laden pines meeting the frozen water under the immense Arctic sky. A sturdy fallen log, half buried in the snow, caught her eye, its dark bark a striking contrast to the white expanse. She maneuvered her sled alongside it, pressing the runners firmly into the snowdrift to anchor it. Glancing down at her hands, she used her left to carefully pull at the fingertips of her right glove, sliding it off and tucking it into her coat pocket. She repeated the motion with the left glove, the soft wool momentarily clinging to her skin before it, too, was pocketed. Bending, she unzipped her backpack again, pushing aside the journal and other items until her fingers closed around the ice skates. They clinked together as she drew them out. Protective covers shielded the blades. She pulled these off carefully, the sudden, intense cold of the metal sharp against her bare hands. The covers dropped into the open backpack. Her current footwear, snug snow boots lined with thick fleece, had kept her feet perfectly warm, making her almost reluctant to remove them in the biting air. Nevertheless, shifting the backpack aside, she sat on the kick sled's chair, propping her right foot on the log for easier access. Unlacing the boot, she slid her foot free, feeling the plush lining give way. The boot landed softly on the snow. Immediately, she guided her foot into the waiting ice skate. Wrapping the laces firmly around her hands, she pulled them taut, securing the skates snugly around her ankle and foot. A sturdy double knot completed the task. Wiggling her toes confirmed the fit was perfect. She lowered her right foot and swiftly repeated the entire process with the left. With both skates securely fastened, a familiar, butterfly-like flutter stirred in her stomach, the thrill of anticipation. It was time. Before standing, however, she retrieved her gloves from her pockets, pulling them back onto her rapidly cooling hands. Instantly warmth bloomed, restoring a sense of cozy preparedness. Now, she affirmed silently, truly ready. She rose, taking a few cautious crunching steps across the snow towards the frozen expanse. Then she was on it. The ice met the blades, and almost without conscious thought, her body remembered. It had been some time, yet the muscle memory flowed back effortlessly. Soon she was gliding, carving fluid arcs across the lake's surface in a solitary dance. The hiss and grind of the blades against the thick, frozen water created their own stark sound. Pure, unadulterated joy surged through her. It was just Alara, the immense silence, and the raw, natural beauty of Arctic Finland embracing her. She found herself spinning slow, joyous circles under the vast sky. A smile bloomed, widening into a soft chuckle as she looked upward, a wave of gratitude washing over her for this improbable, perfect moment. As if in response, a single, large snowflake drifted down, landing precisely on the tip of her nose, prompting another giggle. This day, she felt, could hold no more perfection. She continued to skate, surrendering to the intoxicating sensation of freedom. Playfully, she experimented with simple turns, then ventured into skating backward. It took a moment to find the rhythm, the right balance and sway of her hips, but soon it felt entirely natural, zigzagging across the glassy surface. After a few minutes of backward gliding, she turned forward again, the crisp air rushing past her face, a clean, sharp caress. The temperature had noticeably dropped since sunset. It made her think of the moon. Slowing her pace, she scanned the heavens again. "There it is," she whispered, spotting a slender crescent, yet luminous against the deepening indigo. Nearby, a steady, unwavering point of light. Venus, she recalled, distinguishable from the stars by its constant glow. As her gaze drifted across the constellations, taking in their seemingly tiny, distant brilliance, a peculiar phenomenon began. A faint, ethereal mist seemed to coalesce in the upper atmosphere. She squinted, focusing. Then a soft, involuntary gasp escaped her lips as the mist intensified, deepening into a breathtaking, vibrant green. The aurora borealis, the northern lights. Ribbons of emerald light swayed and pulsed across the star-strewn canvas, their celestial dance seeming to echo her own movements on the ice below. The lights shimmered, one section flaring with an almost neon intensity, then extending outwards, softening as they flowed and shifted. Yet, despite the silent spectacle unfolding overhead, time itself felt suspended. She wasn't sure if she was still gliding or standing perfectly still, utterly transfixed. It felt as though she had slipped the bonds of ordinary space and time, gazing into the heart of this otherworldly performance. The colors, the movement, the sheer scale felt impossibly close, almost tangible. Instinctively, she reached a gloved hand upward, as if to brush against the flowing light. And then, as swiftly as it had appeared, the display pulsed one last time and faded, like velvet curtains drawing closed at a performance's end. A tingling sensation lingered across her entire body as she stood, suddenly aware again of her skates on the frozen lake. She felt intensely alive, yet simultaneously imbued with a profound calm, the afterglow of witnessing the aurora's magic. Nothing like it, she thought. Never. Gratitude surged again. So glad to be here today. Slowly, deliberately, she circled the lake one final time, her mind replaying the natural marvel she had just witnessed. Then she guided herself towards the edge nearest her belongings, stepping carefully off the ice onto the forgiving snow, tiny shards skittering from beneath her blades. Back on solid ground, she sank onto the kick sled's chair. Her fuzzy boots waited patiently. Bending forward, she untied each skate, pulling them off one by one. Setting them aside, she gratefully slipped her feet back into the warm embrace of her boots, lacing them comfortably. Standing, she turned and brushed off a dusting of snow that had settled on her shoulders during her skating reverie. Picking up the skates, feeling their surprising weight in one hand, she retrieved the protective blade covers with the other. Gently, she pushed the covers back onto the blades and placed the skates into her backpack, letting out a sigh of deep contentment. She zipped the bag closed one last time. With a gentle pull, she maneuvered the kick sled back onto the main path, ready for the short return journey to the village center. Once more gliding along the snow-covered track, she passed other locals and visitors still enjoying the crisp evening air. She noticed a shared luminescence about them, a quiet glow that seemed to emanate from within. She imagined her own face reflected a similar radiance. As she sledded past a small group, she overheard snippets of conversation. They were talking about the northern lights. A private smile touched her lips, thinking of the uniquely spectacular view she'd been granted from the secluded lake. Before long, she arrived back at her cabin, parking her sled alongside several others near the entrance. No locks were needed here. Trust was woven into the fabric of this place. A few shallow steps led up to the cabin door. She softly kicked the toes of her boots against the risers, dislodging clumps of packed snow. At the threshold, she scraped her soles vigorously against a snowflake-patterned doormat before turning the knob and stepping inside. The cabin opened into a small common area where a fireplace cast flickering light and warmth. Kai and Linnea, a couple, sat close together on a sofa, holding steaming mugs, the vapor rising in delicate plumes as Linnea took a sip. As the door clicked shut behind Alara, Linnea glanced over, offering a warm smile before her gaze returned to the mesmerizing dance of the flames. Heading down the short hallway, the wooden floorboards creaked companionably beneath her weight. Soon, she reached the door to her room. Inside, a cozy haven awaited, a large bed piled with thick blankets, rustic wooden furniture, and in the corner, a small potted pine tree releasing its subtle, fresh fragrance into the air. She slipped off her boots near the door and flicked on a string of fairy lights adorning the wall beside the bed, instantly creating a welcoming ambiance. Across the room stood a window. Crossing to it, she drew back the heavy curtains. Closing her eyes for a fleeting moment, she made a silent, hopeful wish, then looked out at the sculpted mounds of snow below and up towards the clear, star-saturated sky. A yawn escaped her. Slowly, she began her preparations for sleep. Soon, she was pulling back the luxuriously soft blankets, slipping between the cool sheets, one leg at a time. She plumped the pillows, then leaned across to the bedside table and switched off the fairy lights. And then, impossibly, magically, through her window, the aurora returned. Luminous greens feathered with soft whites painted the night sky. The lights moved with a slow, languid grace, a silent lullaby dancing above the sleeping world. Time stretched, measured only by the shifting celestial glow. Before she knew it, her eyelids grew heavy, resisting her efforts to keep watching. She blinked, slowly, softly, consciousness blurring at the edges. Drifting into a deep, restful slumber, her dreams were already weaving themselves from the magic of Arctic Finland and the dazzling, unforgettable spectacle of the aurora borealis. Within the cherry boughs and apple branches, birdsong weaves a sweet chorus. Auguste Dubois, straw-hatted, emerges from his home. He pauses, stroking the long silver cascade of his beard, his gaze sweeping across the Clos Normand, his magnificent garden, bejeweled with morning dew, the petals of nascent blooms, rose, lavender, alabaster, and crimson, shimmer. A smile touches his lips, contentment settling upon him at the vista. Reaching down, he retrieves a compact leather satchel and a folded wooden easel. Along the gravel path he ambles, halting before an exuberant line of peonies. Squinting slightly, Auguste appraises the pink blossoms, their petals densely furled. Nearby, a honeybee hums a low thrum. The air, still crisp, gathers warmth with each passing moment. Yes, Auguste muses, this shall be the day's locus of creation. He unfolds the collapsible easel, planting its tripod feet firmly on the gray pathway. Bending to the satchel, he unfastens it, revealing brushes with short, precise bristles, a wooden palette awaiting its chromatic destiny, and an array of oil paint tubes. Even now, 4 decades since their invention, Auguste still marvels at the liberating ease of tubed pigments. Their sheer convenience allowed him swift work outdoors, squeezing vibrant ribbons directly onto canvas or blending them upon his palette. To paint outdoors, en plein air, as the artists termed it, had been Auguste's métier from his formative years. As a young man, he dedicated countless hours to gazing across the shores and quays of his coastal hometown, Dieppe, in France's Normandy region. He observed how the ocean's hues transmuted with the day's progression, shifted with the caprice of weather. Picture the aquamarine or teal undulations of a radiant summer noon, or the ominous gunmetal gray heralding an imminent storm. Consider the sea's vast navy mantle at twilight, its profound blackness near midnight. Auguste studied these ephemeral shifts, striving to capture these transient nuances and transformations in his canvases, some rendered right there upon the sands. He sought to articulate impressions, even christening one of his most renowned works. Impression Aurore in 1832, when a Parisian critic later labeled Auguste and his contemporaries Impressionists, the designation endured. Though initially intended as scorn, Auguste and his circle, artists like Etienne Leroux, Sophie Blanchard, and Jean Moreau, embraced it. They painted their perceptions, fleeting moment by fleeting moment, day after day. Today, Auguste smiles again, drawing a deep, centering breath as he surveys the chosen painting spot. Memories surface of his first encounter with this land, the terrain destined to become his sanctuary, his personal Eden. In the early 1880s, Auguste Dubois had boarded a train that wound its unhurried way through the French countryside west of Paris, traversing golden wheat fields tilled by horse-drawn plows, passing half-timbered dwellings crowned with thatch. Roughly 50 miles from the capital, Auguste glanced from his window, spying the hamlet of Giverny, cradled where the Epte and Seine rivers converged. Obsessed as he was with light, he watched the sun's rays dance upon the river's ripples, saw them reflect upward, bathing the leaves of a nearby apple tree in a delicate luminescence. In that instant, he knew he had found his place. By 1883, Auguste relocated his family to Giverny. Renting a cottage and a plot of land, he would gradually sculpt into a tranquil haven of flora. The modest cottage he expanded into one long structure, affording ample room for family and studio, dressing it in colors to delight the eye. A gentle pastel pink for the facade, a vibrant green for many shutters and window frames. Along the front, Auguste trained climbing roses over a pergola spanning the house's length, allowing Virginia creeper to cascade across the pale walls. In summer's height, the house, then as now, melds seamlessly with its verdant surroundings. Pink and green greet the eye from every vantage. While the house formed the nucleus of Dubois family life, It was the attendant gardens that truly filled the artist with profound joy and serenity. The land around the Givigny cottage was initially agricultural, sparse, and unadorned. But Auguste envisioned flowers in a maelstrom of hues and forms, a living palette for year-round painting. He planted accordingly scarlet poppies, their papery petals whispering in spring breezes, sunflowers craning their yellow and black visages toward the summer sun, black-eyed Susans competing for autumn's final luminous afternoons before Normandy succumbed to winter's chill. Auguste often selected plantings for appearance and color, as one might expect of an artist, prioritizing aesthetic splendor above all else. By the early 1890s, sufficient prosperity allowed him to purchase the Givigny homestead and adjacent lands outright. He then embarked on transforming his permanent residence into the botanical paradise held vivid in his mind's eye. Auguste pictured raised beds overflowing with blossoms, reveling in nature's untamed course, a stark departure from traditional French ornamental gardens, regimented in strict lines and spacing. His garden, conversely, would flourish freely, an opulence of contrasting tones and textures. He would juxtapose humble flowers like sweet white and yellow daisies with ornamental Japanese apricot trees. Green metal trellises arched over a gravel walkway, offering climbing roots for cherished roses. He could almost inhale the intoxicating perfume of those roses in fresh bloom. His garden would become known as the Clos Normand, a magnetic allure for the artist then and the visitor now. Auguste would lavish hours tending his beloved plants. When not tending, he was painting them. Now, on this crisp spring morning, his plants stand content and thriving, refreshed by a gentle overnight shower. No tending is required today, leaving time purely for painting. Before introducing color to his wooden palette, Auguste must prepare the canvas's ground, an even smooth layer of light paint, typically lead white or a pale gray, applied across the impressionist's entire surface. Oil paint possesses inherent translucency. Applied atop this luminous ground, colors appear brighter, more vibrant than on a dull, unprimed canvas. This brilliance was an impressionist hallmark, paintings that seemed to radiate light from within. After applying the thin wash of lead white, Auguste turns his focus back to the peonies, scrutinizing the contours of each curling leaf, the interplay of shadow and sunlight within the flower's depths, the woody grain of the stem. His observation is relentless. Unless pausing to cleanse a brush, his eyes return to the flowers every few seconds. At last, ready to commence, he dips his first brush across the waiting palette. For an artist of such scope and experience, one might envision Auguste's palette awash in countless pigments. Yet this wasn't so. With merely 9 proven colors at his disposal, he could conjure any conceivable shade through mixture, a testament to his mastery. This profound grasp of chemistry, optics, and color theory rendered his paintings indelible. This morning, he glances again at the peonies in the Clos Normand. They stand elegantly pink, voluptuous, fragrant. Auguste smiles, swirling his brush in madder red, his preferred crimson, before incorporating a touch of lead white. The colors merge as he looks up once more at the flower. He sighs softly. Not quite right, but easily remedied. Another glance confirms his living subjects possess a subtle violet undertone. Down the palette his eye travels, finding a small pool of French ultramarine, a resonant blue. Swirl, 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 until his brush mirrors the riot of blossoms before him. And then the alchemy unfolds. Upon the primed white canvas, Auguste draws his newly pigmented brush, its bristles creating a satisfying rasp across the textured surface. Each stroke is small, each gesture precise. Repetitive dabs gradually coalesce into something recognizable, a single petal of a burgeoning bloom. The process is unhurried, deliberate even. Auguste becomes aware of his breath synchronizing with the gentle rhythm of his brushwork. Dab, inhale, swipe, exhale. As moments drift by, Auguste varies the texture of his strokes, sometimes applying thicker impasto, other times thinning the paint. The surface becomes uneven, alive, compelling the viewer's eye to dance across it. Soon, scarcely any space will offer visual respite. Every corner will pulse with color, brilliant chrome yellow where sunlight showers, lush emerald green in the tendrils of climbing roses, an exquisite fusion of vermilion, cobalt blue, and lead white, approximating the large-petaled clematis. Small zones of contrast, strategically placed throughout the composition, make the colors resonate even more intensely. A fleck of green beside a red rose, a purple shadow opposing a golden sunflower. The foundation of this painting will be laid this morning, here in the Clos Normand. Auguste might refine it in his studio later, or perhaps declare it complete, one among many works executed swiftly yet assuredly throughout his mature life. In total, Auguste Dubois is thought to have produced over 2,000 paintings, drawings, and pastels, though the precise count remains elusive. He was known on occasion to burn or destroy pieces he deemed flawed. Today's effort, however, feels successful. Auguste smiles, pausing to appreciate his creation while dabbing a cotton handkerchief across his damp brow. He reaches down, fingertips brushing the soft petals of a peony, before gently slinging the satchel over his shoulder. For now, a respite is due, a leisurely stroll through his expansive gardens. The wooden easel stays put. Auguste will revisit it this afternoon to capture these same pink peonies, bathed in the waning light of dusk. Retrieving one of those famed Normandy apples from his satchel, he ambles along a path bisecting the Clos Normand, perpendicular to a small road. Taking a deep breath, momentarily slowing his pulse, he bites into the crisp red fruit. The taste floods him with simple joy. He savors the tart, sweet juices while gazing across the road toward his next destination. The view transports him back several years to a time when he expanded his garden further into something innovative, ambitious, inspired. The Clos Normand, with its careful orchestration of year-round blooms and visual appeal, had initially supplied years of artistic sustenance. It was his great delight, his personal treasure, yet a yearning persisted for more inspiration, more flowers, perhaps even another garden entirely. Maybe across the road? A marshy area existed there, a parcel of land neglected, save as a watering spot for stray cattle. Once again, Auguste's vivid inner eye ignited. Upon that swampland, he envisioned a floating garden, a pond brimming with aquatic flora. The genesis of this idea likely stemmed from Auguste's affinity for Japanese culture, a fascination prevalent in Western Europe during the late 19th century. He had encountered Asian water gardens depicted in Japanese prints, which he collected almost as avidly as he gathered plants for the closed Normand. Within years, Auguste had accumulated over 200 Japanese woodblock prints. A floating garden represented the perfect synthesis of his passions: botany, culture, and, naturally, art. By 1893, Auguste had acquired the coveted tract and commenced the laborious undertaking of its transformation into a water garden. By 1895, it already bore resemblance to the celebrated spot he approaches today. Crossing the road, descending toward his Japanese-inspired water garden, he finds lush weeping willows cascading over a placid pond. Woody green bamboo flanks the water's edge. Japanese maples and Asian varieties of peonies and wisteria inject bursts of color. Here, Auguste elegantly fused Asian aesthetics and design with the Norman landscape. Most striking was his commission of two curved Japanese bridges, arcing elegantly above the water. Diverging from their traditional red-painted counterparts, Auguste rendered his bridges a vibrant blue-green. This very bridge would later become a central motif in a series of paintings, capturing its curves through all seasons and atmospheric veils. The fiery tapestry of autumn foliage, the ethereal mists of a cool winter dawn. Though the bridge was undeniably captivating, a final element of the water garden soon claimed precedence, not just in Auguste's consciousness, but within his artistic legacy, the water lilies. Standing at the water's margin, Auguste gazes down at the pond's surface, surveying the countless green lily pads colonizing the water. 10, 20, 30, impossible to tally them all. Some cradle delicate mauve lilies. Occasionally, a small green frog perches upon one. These water lilies have become Auguste's sole preoccupation. He nurtures them with the aid of a full-time gardener. To friends, he often declared that his water garden and its lilies could transport him to absolute ecstasy. It is a primary reason why now, and for the final 3 decades of his life, Auguste seldom ventures far from Giverny. He vastly prefers contemplating the water garden's shifting palette on a spring day, or analyzing the pond surface after a dusting of winter snow. He grew fascinated not only by the mutations of light, but by how the slightest disturbance sent ripples across the pond surface, dissolving the reflections of the water lilies into blurs of color and nebulous shapes. Auguste, his eyes ever observant, now watches as a brisk breeze transforms the pond's blue depths into a pale gray mirror. A fallen leaf momentarily obscures a glimpse of the pond bed, casting dark shadows beneath it. Every season, every day, every instant held the potential for a new artistic epiphany, a fresh impression to seize spontaneously. Small wonder, then, that he would ultimately paint over 250 canvases dedicated solely to these water lilies from his aquatic haven. These works, known collectively as the Nymphaeas, rank among the most treasured of all Auguste Dubois' creations. When we encounter his paintings today, it can be easy to overlook their scale, their resonance, their significance. Yet they bequeathed a profound legacy upon an art world caught unawares. Impressionism nudged art closer to abstraction than ever before. It revolutionized conceptions of how light, color, tone, and texture could be rendered, offering new avenues for expressing emotions or sensations within the physical medium of paint. Auguste's paintings are undeniably masterpieces, but his garden, too, can be regarded as a magnum opus. These gardens were and remain living works of art that birthed creations of their own, continuing to inspire artists today. At this moment, however, Auguste's thoughts dwell far from his artistic posterity. He is immersed in the present, in the gardens he lovingly cultivated and will continue to lovingly paint. Even now, the sheer beauty surrounding him steals his breath. As the day concludes, the sun dips behind the willows bordering the water garden. Auguste leaned against the sturdy trunk of a tree he nurtured from a sapling, listening to the cricket's chirp and the frog's resonant croak. The moon, ascending softly, will soon mute the garden's customary riot of color into modulations of indigo, violet, and slate. Darkness approaches. He rises, retracing his steps across the Japanese bridge, up the road toward the Clos Normand, seeking repose. Auguste inhales deeply one last time, savoring the final fragrant exhalations of the flowers enveloping him. An owl calls softly nearby as he pads up the gravel path once more, entering his house and securing the green door behind him. He bids good night to his cherished garden, his deepest wellspring of inspiration, certain he will greet it again with the morning light.